Welcome to the show. Imagine this. A product wins a massive market, and it does not win because the core user says, "Finally, my pen tool is better." It wins because one person sends a link, five people open it, and suddenly the entire company is working differently.
That's the Figma story, not better design software in the narrow sense. Figma changed the operating model around design. And for CEOs, that distinction matters a lot because tool improvements are incremental. Workflow change is strategic.
So let's make the product identity crystal clear. If I'm a founder or a revenue leader and I've heard the name but never lived in the product, what is Figma exactly?
Figma is browser-based collaborative design software. You open it in the browser, multiple people can work in the same file live. Sharing is instant through a link, and you avoid a lot of the old mess. Heavy installs, file versions flying around, final V7, all of that corporate archaeology, which, by the way, should be outlawed.
Final V7 is the real villain in enterprise software. But the phrase you used there, multiple people in the same file live, that's the thing, right? Same file, same moment, no waiting.
Exactly. Same file, same moment, same source of truth. And that sounds simple now because Figma made it feel obvious. But that's hindsight bias. Before that, a lot of design work still behaved like document management. Someone created, someone exported, someone uploaded, someone commented somewhere else. Somebody inevitably reviewed the wrong version.
So where do Sketch and Adobe fit in that comparison? Because this is where people get lazy and say, well, they were all design tools. That's not precise enough.
Right, and the precision is the strategy. Sketch was primarily a designer tool, very strong with designers, but still centered on the designer's environment. Adobe was a system, broad, powerful, established, but heavier, more suite-oriented, more rooted in software architecture and professional creative workflows. Figma positioned itself as a workflow environment. That is a totally different category move.
Designer tool, system, workflow environment, those three labels actually stick because a workflow environment invites non-designers in. Product, marketing, engineering, founders, they can participate without needing a passport and a visa.
Exactly. Figma lowered the participation threshold. And once you do that, your competitive frame changes. You're no longer asking, can I beat Sketch on features? You're asking, can I become the place where the work happens? That's a much bigger prize.
I think that's the CEO grade lesson here. If your product only improves the specialist's experience, growth can stall inside the department. If your product changes how adjacent teams behave, now you're building expansion into the product itself.
Yes, but let's sharpen it. Plenty of companies say they're collaborative. That word gets abused. Figma's version of collaboration was operational, not decorative. Live multi-user editing, instant sharing, low-friction access. Those are not branding words. Those are adoption mechanics.
And it changes the buying path too. Because if the product can be seen, understood, and experienced through a link, the demo starts before sales even enters the room.
That's a big point. The product demonstration became native to usage. No heavy install means less resistance. No complicated handoff means fewer blockers. And no version chaos means the product removes friction that people were already paying for with time, confusion, and rework.
So the thesis of Chapter 1 is pretty brutal for competitors. Figma didn't just offer a nicer canvas. It reorganized the interaction between teams around the canvas.
Yes, and once the interaction model changes, feature comparisons start losing power. Because you're not replacing one brush with another brush. You're replacing a fragmented workflow with a shared environment. That's why this is such a strong GTM case study.
Okay, then the switch. Because companies love to tell themselves big enterprise software moves happen through politics, procurement, and top-down mandates. But with Figma, the motion was more behavioral. Walk me through it.
The cleanest sequence is link, view, react, use, depend, expand, buy. That's the mechanism. Someone sends a Figma link. Another person opens it. They don't need a big setup ritual. They view the work, react in context, maybe start using it directly. Then their team begins to depend on that workflow. Usage expands across functions, and eventually the enterprise buy follows the behavior.
Link, view, react, use, depend, expand, buy. I like that because it strips out the mythology. It's not a revolution speech, it's a sequence. And the first token there, the link, is doing a lot of work.
It is. The first 30 seconds matter. You get a link, you click. The design opens. You can see it immediately. You can understand what's on screen. You can comment, move around, inspect, collaborate. In that tiny moment, the product explains itself. No one has to tell you why this is better than hunting for attachments or asking, do I have the right file?
And that moment is vivid. A PM gets a Figma link in Slack, opens it between meetings, sees the latest screens, drops a comment exactly where the issue is, and realizes, oh, I'm inside the work, not outside it. I didn't need a meeting. I didn't need a screenshot deck. I didn't even need someone to translate the design for me.
That's the unlock. Not admiration, utility, immediate utility. The user doesn't say, what a beautifully positioned company. They say, I can use this right now. GTM people forget how powerful that is. The fastest education is successful first use.
Let me try to play it back. The switch was not, Dear Design Director, please replace incumbent software across the enterprise. It was more like, here's a link. Come look at this. And then behavior starts to drift.
Almost. Not drift, compound. Because view is passive, but react creates engagement. Use creates habit. Depend creates risk if removed. Once teams depend on the workflow, expansion gets much easier because now removing the product disrupts coordination, not just design production.
And this is where market education becomes part of GTM, not a side project. Figma didn't just wait for the market to magically understand modern collaboration.
Correct. Community, templates, and shareable workflows all taught the market how to work this way. That's important. Education was embedded in usage. A shared file teaches collaboration. A template teaches process. Community teaches norms. So the market wasn't only buying software, it was learning a modern way to coordinate around design.
Templates are underrated here. A template is not just a starting point. It's a behavioral script. It tells a team, this is how planning, review, and iteration can happen. That's a sneaky GTM engine.
Yes, because the template shortens the distance between curiosity and competent use. And when you shorten that distance, conversion improves. Again, not because of slogans, because friction is lower.
So behavior change led to adoption. Adoption led to dependency. Dependency led to enterprise expansion. And then you can see the financial proof. This is not a nice story with no numbers behind it.
Right. The CEO lens is the scoreboard. Approximately $1.056 billion in fiscal year 2025 revenue. Around 41% year-over-year growth. Roughly 136% net dollar retention. And the customer shape matters. 13,861 customers above $10,000 ARR, 1,405 above $100,000 ARR, and 67 above $1 million ARR, plus about $1.7 billion in cash.
The 136% net dollar retention is the one that really lands for me. 136. That says existing customers didn't just stay, they expanded, which is exactly what you'd expect if the product moved from tool to dependency.
Exactly. And those 67 customers above $1 million ARR, that's not hobby usage, that's institutional presence. That's what happens when workflow penetration becomes commercial depth.
In other words, a link turned into a line item.
Yes, and a very healthy line item. But there's a serious lesson underneath the joke. If your GTM depends on convincing the market with claims, you're exposed. If your product teaches the market through use, you have leverage.
That's the thought I'd leave CEOs with. Are you selling a better tool, or are you changing how work actually happens? Because those are not the same game.
And if you want more of these breakdowns, connect with Match B2B and with Benny Fluman on LinkedIn. We spend a lot of time on the mechanics behind growth, not the slogans.
Thanks for listening to Match B2B Insights. We'll see you on LinkedIn.